Welcome to Strings Attached, bite-sized video explainers around Title IV federal student aid rules for colleges and universities. I'm Annie Cartwright, one of the partners in Husch Blackwell's higher education legal practice. Today we're going to talk about new rules around what schools must provide to students in terms of clinical and externship opportunities and career services. As of July 1st, 2024, the U.S. Department of Education, or ED, released a new regulatory package that includes these rules called Financial Responsibility, Administrative Capability, Certification Procedures, and Ability to Benefit Regulations. ED popped these new requirements in the Administrative Capability Regulation, which is 34 CFR 668.16, and that's the regulation where ED tells schools what the baseline skills are that they need to have in order to participate in and administer Title IV programs. The new requirements around career services and clinical and externship opportunities are pretty cryptic, and we will do our best to demystify them given the absence of guidance from ED as of this recording. The new regulation says that schools must now have adequate career services offerings for students who receive Title IV federal student aid. ED will judge adequacy on a number of factors, including the share of students enrolled in gainful employment, reductively career preparation programs, the number of career services staff, what's been promised to students, and institutional partnerships with recruiters and employers. Though ED said it will assess adequacy, in its commentary it did say the institution and not the department determines the type of career services that are appropriate. Turning to ED's directive on clinical and externship opportunities, it applies where schools have programs that require those clinical or externship opportunities, either for a student's program completion or where those requirements are required to be part of a student's educational program for licensure programs. The school must provide to students, not just students who receive Title IV aid, geographically accessible clinical or externship opportunities within 45 days of the student completing other required coursework. ED did address some of the concerns that language raises in the preamble to its new regulatory package. It said, in response to objections that students could be required to find their own clinical or externship opportunities, a practice that I know a number of schools have followed in the past, ED said, nope, that's not fair, where clinical or externship experiences are required in order to complete a student's educational program. At the same time, ED did clarify that schools are not required to provide post-graduation clinical experiences, things like medical residencies that are outside the scope of an educational program. The department indicated that students need to be offered these clinical or externship opportunities within 45 days of completing other coursework. They don't necessarily need to start those experiences within 45 days, but ED did say if we have a pattern of gaps in the time frame, it could find the school's practices to be problematic. ED also offered somewhat vaguely that whether a site is geographically accessible is going to depend on the credential level and the geographic location of the institution. What does this mean for your school? First, as to career services, in its commentary, ED emphasized that it will really be looking at what schools have promised their students. So this may be a good time for you to consider the promises that you are making to your students about career services so that you can document that they are adequate for purposes of satisfying this regulation. Second, as to clinicals and externship experiences, look at your institution's ability to meet that 45-day requirement for providing those opportunities to students. Finally, these new rules are yet another area where you have to reach outside your financial aid office to reach Title IV compliance. Look to offices like your career services office and your academic offices that may be in charge of those clinical and externship opportunities. That's all for this episode. If we can be of service on Title IV or other higher education legal issues, please reach out to me, Annie Cartwright, or your favorite Husch Blackwell education team member. We might also send a gift of appreciation to someone who sends us a shareable Title IV higher education regulatory joke. Until our next episode, keep up the good work.